In the year 2147, humanity stood on the brink of a new era. For decades, astronomers had scanned the skies for signs of intelligent life beyond Earth. Finally, their efforts paid off when mysterious ships appeared in orbit around the planet. These vessels were unlike anything humans had ever seen, smooth, crystalline structures that shimmered with an otherworldly glow. Scientists called them the Scifi, and they seemed to have come in peace. Thomas Harper was no stranger to strange situations. As one of the world's leading linguists, he spent most of his days decoding ancient languages or working with artificial intelligence programs designed to translate foreign tongues. But nothing could have prepared him for what happened next. When the United Earth Council announced plans to send a delegation aboard a Scifi ship, Thomas was chosen as part of the team tasked with establishing communication. It wasn't just a job. It felt like destiny. The journey began aboard a sleek shuttlecraft provided by the Scifi themselves. The interior of the craft defied logic. Walls shifted colors subtly, and there was no discernible source of light, yet everything was bathed in soft radiance. Thomas sat quietly, clutching his datapad tightly. He glanced at the others in the group, a physicist, 2 diplomats, and a biologist, all equally nervous but trying hard not to show it. None of them knew what awaited them once they reached the mothership. When the shuttle docked, the delegation stepped out into a vast chamber filled with floating platforms and glowing symbols etched into the air itself. Dozens of Scifi surrounded them, their forms humanoid but distinctly alien. Their skin shimmered like liquid metal, and their eyes glowed faintly with hues of blue and green. They moved gracefully, almost weightlessly, as if gravity didn't fully apply to them. The leader of the delegation, Ambassador Clara Hayes, took the lead. She spoke slowly, using carefully crafted phrases meant to convey goodwill. "We come in peace," she said, her voice steady despite her nerves. A device attached to her belt translated her words into a series of melodic tones that resonated through the chamber. The Scifi responded in kind, their voices harmonizing like a choir. It was beautiful and utterly incomprehensible without the translation technology. For hours, the 2 groups exchanged information, trading basic concepts about numbers, directions, and emotions. Progress was slow but promising. Thomas watched intently, jotting down notes on his datapad while occasionally consulting with the team's eye assistant. His role was crucial. Every word exchanged brought humanity closer to understanding these enigmatic beings. Then something unexpected happened. As the meeting drew to a close, a lone figure emerged from among the Scifi. She was taller than the others, her presence commanding yet serene. Her skin sparkled with a unique golden hue, setting her apart from her companions. Without hesitation, she approached Thomas, stopping mere inches away. Everyone fell silent, unsure of what to do. And then, in perfect English, she whispered, "You are my husband now." Time seemed to freeze. Thomas blinked, certain he'd misheard. But the words echoed in his mind, clear and undeniable. His heart raced as confusion washed over him. Husband. What did that even mean? Was this some kind of misunderstanding? Or worse, a threat? Ambassador Hayes stepped forward cautiously, her diplomatic training kicking in. "Could you clarify your statement?" she asked politely, though her tone betrayed her unease. The woman tilted her head slightly, studying Thomas with piercing eyes. "I am Lizere," she said, her voice calm but firm. "He resonates with me. This is our bond." Before anyone could respond, the Scifi turned and walked away, leaving behind a stunned delegation. Thomas felt all eyes on him, questions swirling in the air. He opened his mouth to speak, but found no words. How could he explain something he didn't understand himself? Back on Earth, news of the encounter spread like wildfire. Reporters swarmed outside Thomas's apartment, demanding answers. Social media exploded with memes and theories about what had really happened. Some joked that aliens had finally figured out how to solve the dating crisis. Others accused Thomas of orchestrating a publicity stunt. Meanwhile, Government officials scrambled to make sense of the situation, debating whether it posed a threat or an opportunity. But amidst the chaos, Thomas couldn't shake the memory of those few seconds, the way Lizira had looked at him, the certainty in her voice. Whatever had occurred, it was real to her. And deep down, he couldn't help but wonder, what if it was real to him too? Little did he know, this was only the beginning of a journey that would change his life, and perhaps the fate of humanity, forever. The days following Thomas Harper's encounter with Lizira were a whirlwind of confusion, scrutiny, and disbelief. News outlets plastered his face across headlines worldwide, each article more sensational than the last. Some called him Earth's first intergalactic groom, while others speculated about hidden agendas or government conspiracies. Social media buzzed with memes mocking his predicament. One depicted him wearing an alien tuxedo next to a glowing bride. Despite the ridicule, Thomas couldn't escape the gravity of what had happened. The words, "You are my husband now," echoed in his mind like a haunting melody he couldn't unhear. At first, Thomas tried to brush it off as a misunderstanding, a glitch in the translation device, perhaps. But deep down, he knew better. Lizira's tone had been deliberate, her gaze unwavering. There was no mistaking the conviction in her voice. And yet, how could such a thing even be possible? Humans and Zenari were separated not just by light years, but by biology, culture, and everything in between. Marriage. It sounded absurd, almost laughable, if it weren't so serious. To make matters worse, the Zenari remained eerily silent after the incident. No further communications came from their fleet, leaving humanity guessing about their intentions. Governments held emergency meetings, scientists debated theories, and conspiracy theorists ran wild. Amidst all this chaos, one question loomed larger than any other. What did the Zenari want with Thomas? The United Earth Council eventually summoned Thomas for a private briefing. He sat in a dimly lit conference room surrounded by officials whose expressions ranged from curiosity to outright suspicion. Ambassador Clara Hayes led the discussion, her usual composure tinged with frustration. "Thomas," she began, leaning forward slightly, "we need to understand exactly what happened up there. Every detail matters." Thomas recounted the events as best he could, though his account only raised more questions. Why had Lizira singled him out? What did she mean by resonance? And most importantly, why had she declared him her husband? As the meeting dragged on, it became clear that the council wasn't satisfied with vague answers. They wanted action. Specifically, they wanted Thomas to return to the Zenari ship. "You're our best chance at getting clarification," Clara said firmly. "If you go back, maybe we can learn more about their motives. And yours." Thomas hesitated. Returning to the Zenari ship felt like stepping into the unknown again, except this time with even higher stakes. Yet he also knew he couldn't ignore the situation. Ignorance wouldn't protect him, or humanity, from whatever was coming next. Reluctantly, he agreed to another mission, accompanied by a small team of experts. Dr. Elena Ruiz, a xenobiologist, Dr. Marcus Lin, a physicist specializing in alien technology, and Lieutenant Sarah Chen, a military officer tasked with ensuring everyone's safety. When the delegation boarded the Zenari shuttle once more, tension filled the air. This time, however, things felt different. The crystalline walls seemed colder, the silence heavier. Even the floating platforms inside the mothership appeared less inviting. As they disembarked, Lizira awaited them, standing alone in the vast chamber where the initial meeting had taken place. She looked unchanged, her golden skin shimmering softly under the ambient glow. "Thomas Harper," she said, addressing him directly. Her voice carried a warmth that contrasted sharply with the sterile environment. "I am pleased you have returned." Before anyone could respond, she gestured for them to follow her deeper into the ship. The delegation exchanged wary glances but complied, unsure of what else to do. They walked through corridors that seemed alive, pulsating faintly with light, as if responding to their presence. Eventually, They arrived at a circular room dominated by a large translucent table. Symbols floated above its surface, shifting and rearranging themselves constantly. Lizura turned to face them, her expression calm but resolute. "You seek understanding," she said, her melodic voice filling the space. "I will provide it." She explained that among the Zenari, marriage, or bonding, as they called it, was not merely a social construct, but a sacred connection tied to survival itself. Centuries ago, their homeworld had faced ecological collapse, forcing them to adapt in extraordinary ways. One adaptation involved forming symbiotic relationships with compatible life forms from other species. These bonds allowed them to share resources, knowledge, and resilience, ensuring mutual prosperity. According to Lizura, when two beings resonated with each other, it created a unique harmony that transcended physical limitations. For Thomas, this resonance had occurred during their first meeting, triggering a biological response within her. She claimed that his presence activated something innate within her, a sensation she described as both exhilarating and inevitable. Thomas listened intently, struggling to process what he was hearing. Bonding? Resonance? None of it made sense in human terms. Still, he couldn't deny the sincerity in Lizura's words. She spoke with a conviction that left little room for doubt. Whether he liked it or not, she genuinely believed they were connected. As the explanation unfolded, the rest of the delegation grew increasingly uneasy. Dr. Ruse scribbled furiously on her datapad, muttering about biological compatibility. Dr. Lin stared at the floating symbols, trying to decipher patterns. Lieutenant Chen kept one hand near her weapon, ready for anything. Only Thomas remained still, his thoughts racing. By the end of the session, Lizura reiterated her claim. Thomas was her chosen partner, bound to her through forces beyond human comprehension. While she assured them this bond posed no threat, she also emphasized its importance, not just to her, but to her people as well. Back aboard the shuttle, the team erupted into heated debate. Dr. Ruse argued that the concept of interspecies bonding was fascinating but risky. Dr. Lin suggested running tests to confirm Lizura's claims scientifically. Lieutenant Chen voiced concerns about potential ulterior motives, urging caution. Through it all, Thomas sat quietly, overwhelmed by conflicting emotions. Was he truly destined to play a role in bridging humanity and the Zenari? Or was this some elaborate scheme he couldn't yet comprehend? Whatever the truth, one thing was certain. His life would never be the same again. Thomas Harper wasn't sure what he expected when he agreed to return to the Zenari ship, but it certainly wasn't this. The more time he spent with Lizura, the more his skepticism began to waver. There was something about her, a quiet certainty in her words, and earnestness in her gaze, that made him question whether dismissing her claim outright was fair. Was it possible that she truly believed what she said? And if so, could there be some truth behind her explanation? Over the next few days, Thomas found himself drawn into conversations with Lizura, often accompanied by Dr. Elena Ruse, who acted as both a translator and a mediator. While the rest of the team focused on studying Zenari technology and biology, Thomas became the primary point of contact for understanding their culture. It wasn't easy. Every interaction felt like navigating uncharted territory. Yet, slowly but surely, pieces of the puzzle started falling into place. Lizura explained that among the Zenari, bonding was not just a personal union. It was a societal necessity. Their species had evolved to rely on these connections after centuries of hardship. When their planet's ecosystem collapsed, they were forced to adapt or face extinction. Bonding with compatible beings from other worlds allowed them to share resources, knowledge, and even genetic traits that strengthened both parties. For the Zenari resonance, the mysterious connection between two individuals wasn't merely symbolic. It was a measurable phenomenon, detectable through advanced biometric readings. To demonstrate, Lizura led Thomas to a chamber filled with intricate machinery. Floating pods hovered silently in midair, each glowing faintly with pulsating lights. She gestured for him to step onto one of the platforms, assuring him it was safe. Hesitant but curious, Thomas complied. As soon as he stepped onto the platform, a soft hum filled the room, and thin beams of light scanned his body from head to toe. Moments later, holographic projections appeared above the pod, displaying complex patterns that shifted and intertwined. "This is your resonance signature," Lizera explained, pointing to the swirling designs. "It reflects your energy, emotions, and essence. Each being has a unique pattern." She then activated another pod, stepping onto it herself. Another set of patterns emerged, shimmering with golden hues that mirrored her radiant skin. To everyone's astonishment, the two sets of patterns began to align, overlapping in ways that seemed almost choreographed. Lines merged, colors blended, and the resulting image pulsed with a harmonious rhythm. Dr. Ruiz leaned closer, her eyes wide with fascination. This is incredible," she murmured. "It's like their systems are designed to recognize compatibility at a fundamental level." For Thomas, seeing the visual proof was both mesmerizing and unsettling. He couldn't deny the evidence in front of him, yet part of him still resisted accepting it fully. How could someone, a human, form such a deep connection with an alien? It defied logic, challenged everything he thought he knew about relationships, and left him grappling with questions he didn't have answers to. As the days turned into weeks, Thomas grew more comfortable around Lizera. She wasn't intimidating or aloof, as he'd initially assumed. Instead, she was patient, thoughtful, and deeply empathetic. Her explanations revealed a profound respect for life, not just her own kind, but all forms of existence. She spoke of harmony, balance, and interconnectedness, concepts that resonated deeply with Thomas despite their differences. One evening, as they sat together in a quiet corner of the ship overlooking Earth from afar, Lizera turned to him with a gentle smile. "You still doubt," she said softly. It wasn't an accusation. It was an observation. Thomas sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I don't know what to think," he admitted. "This is all so overwhelming. I'd spent my whole life studying languages, cultures, and communication. But none of that prepared me for this. You're asking me to believe in something I can't see, touch, or fully understand." Lizera nodded, her expression compassionate. "Doubt is natural," she replied. "But trust grows over time. I do not expect you to accept this bond immediately. All I ask is that you remain open to learning." Her words struck a chord within him. Openness had always been his strength as a linguist. He prided himself on approaching new challenges without preconceived notions, allowing curiosity to guide him. Perhaps this situation required the same mindset. Maybe instead of resisting, he needed to embrace the unknown and let the answers come to him naturally. Over time, Thomas discovered subtle similarities between human and Cenari values. Both species valued community, cooperation, and the pursuit of knowledge. Lizera shared stories of her people's struggles and triumphs, painting a picture of resilience and hope. In turn, Thomas told her about humanity's history, its wars, achievements, and dreams for the future. They laughed together at cultural quirks and marveled at how much they could learn from each other. Despite the growing bond, doubts lingered in Thomas's mind. What did this mean for his life back on Earth? Could he ever reconcile his identity as a human with whatever role Lizera envisioned for him? And what about love? Was this bond truly akin to marriage, or was it something entirely different? These questions weighed heavily on him, but Lizera never pressured him for answers. Instead, she gave him space to reflect, trusting that time would bring clarity. Slowly, Thomas realized that her patience was one of the things he admired most about her. She didn't demand compliance or force her beliefs on him. She simply offered understanding and companionship, leaving the choice ultimately in his hands. By the end of his stay aboard the Cenari ship, Thomas found himself torn between two worlds. On one hand, returning to Earth meant familiarity, comfort, and the life he'd built for himself. On the other hand, staying with Lizera promised adventure, growth, and the chance to be part of something extraordinary. No matter which path he chose, one thing was certain: his perspective had changed forever. The journey ahead was uncertain, but Thomas couldn't help feeling a spark of excitement. Whatever lay in store for him, he knew one thing for sure. He was ready to keep exploring, keep learning, and keep questioning. After all, isn't that what life, and perhaps even love, was all about? As word of Thomas Harper's deepening bond with Lizira spread, resistance began to mount on both Earth and the Zenari fleet. The relationship between a human and an alien was unprecedented, and it sparked heated debates among scientists, politicians, and ordinary citizens alike. Some saw it as a monumental step toward unity between species, while others viewed it as a dangerous deviation from tradition and common sense. On Earth, public opinion was sharply divided. Social media platforms became battlegrounds for opposing viewpoints. Supporters of Thomas and Lizira argued that their connection represented hope, a chance for humanity to transcend its limitations and forge meaningful alliances with extraterrestrial life. They pointed to the potential benefits of such a partnership: technological advancements, shared resources, and a deeper understanding of the universe. Memes celebrating Earth's first intergalactic couple went viral, accompanied by hashtags like #HarmonyThroughResonance. But not everyone was convinced. Critics accused Thomas of abandoning his humanity, suggesting that he had been brainwashed or coerced into accepting the Zenari woman's claim. Conspiracy theorists speculated that Lizira's declaration of marriage was part of a larger plan to infiltrate human society and exploit its weaknesses. Religious leaders voiced concerns about the sanctity of human relationships being undermined by unnatural unions. Even some members of the scientific community expressed skepticism, questioning whether resonance truly existed or if it was merely a fabrication designed to manipulate emotions. The backlash wasn't limited to online discourse. Protests erupted outside government buildings and research facilities worldwide. Signs read phrases like "Keep humans human" and "No alien takeovers." The United Earth Council found itself under immense pressure to address the growing unrest. Politicians demanded answers, calling for investigations into the legitimacy of Lizira's claims and urging caution before committing to any agreements with the Zenari. Meanwhile, aboard the Zenari ship, tensions were equally high, but for different reasons. While many Zenari supported Lizira's decision to bond with Thomas, others viewed her choice as reckless and irresponsible. Traditionalists within their society believed that bonding should only occur between members of their own kind or with beings whose compatibility had been thoroughly tested over generations. To them, forming a connection with a human, an outsider, was tantamount to gambling with the survival of their species. Lizira faced criticism during council meetings held in shimmering chambers, filled with floating symbols and holographic projections. Elders questioned her judgment, arguing that her actions could destabilize the fragile balance they had worked so hard to maintain. One elder named Valen spoke passionately against her, his voice resonating through the chamber like thunder. "We cannot risk everything we have built on the whims of one individual," he declared. "This human may seem compatible now, but what happens when the bond fails? What becomes of our people then?" Despite the opposition, Lizira remained steadfast. She addressed the council with calm determination, her golden skin glowing softly under the ambient light. "I understand your concerns," she said, her melodic voice carrying authority. "But you must also recognize that evolution requires adaptation. Our ancestors bonded with other species to survive. Why should we limit ourselves now when new possibilities arise?" Her words struck a chord with some, particularly younger Zenari who admired her courage and vision. Among them was Kale, a scientist tasked with studying resonance patterns. He presented data showing how Thomas's signature aligned uniquely with Lizira's, emphasizing that such harmonization was rare even among their own people. "This is not just a random pairing," Kale explained. "It is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to strengthen our bonds, not weaken them." While the debate raged on, Thomas struggled to navigate the mounting pressure. Back on Earth, his family reached out, expressing mixed feelings about his situation. His mother sent heartfelt messages urging him to prioritize his safety, while his brother dismissed the entire ordeal as absurd. Friends stopped contacting him altogether, unsure of how to react. At times, Thomas felt isolated, caught between two worlds that neither fully accepted nor understood him. Yet, despite the challenges, his bond with Lyzira continued to grow stronger. She stood by him unwaveringly, offering support and guidance whenever doubt crept in. Together, they explored ways to bridge the gap between their cultures, finding common ground in shared values like curiosity, resilience, and compassion. Slowly but surely, Thomas began to see glimpses of a future where humans and Scifi could coexist peacefully, if given the chance. One evening, as they sat together overlooking Earth from the observation deck of the mothership, Lyzira turned to him with a thoughtful expression. "Change is always met with resistance," she said gently. "But progress requires patience. You are not alone in this journey, Thomas. We will face these challenges together." Her words reassured him, though the road ahead remained uncertain. As tensions escalated on both sides, Thomas realized that proving the validity of their bond would require more than just words or theories. It would take action. And soon, he would have to make a choice: retreat to the comfort of familiarity, or embrace the unknown, and fight for a future neither of them had imagined possible. Little did he know, the ultimate test of their bond, and their resolve, was just around the corner. The tension between humans and Scifi reached a boiling point when the Scifi High Council announced that Thomas Harper and Lyzira's bond would be put to a formal trial. This decision sent shockwaves through both species, as the outcome of the trial would determine not only their fate, but also the future of human-Scifi relations. If the council ruled against them, Lyzira would face exile from her people, and Thomas would likely never see her again. For Thomas, the stakes had never been higher. Preparations for the trial began immediately. The event was set to take place aboard the Scifi mothership in a grand chamber known as the Hall of Echoes, a space reserved for matters of utmost importance. Its walls shimmered with crystalline patterns that shifted subtly, responding to the emotions of those present. Floating platforms hovered at varying heights, creating an amphitheater-like arrangement where witnesses and observers could gather. At the center stood a glowing podium, designed to amplify voices and project resonance signatures into the air for all to see. Thomas and Lyzira were given limited time to prepare, but they approached the challenge together, determined to prove the authenticity of their bond. With the help of Dr. Elena Ruiz and Kale, the Scifi scientist who supported their cause, they gathered evidence to present during the trial. Resonance readings, holographic projections of their aligned energy patterns, and testimonies from those who had witnessed their interactions were meticulously organized. Even Lieutenant Sarah Chen, initially skeptical of the entire situation, agreed to testify on their behalf after seeing firsthand how deeply Thomas and Lyzira cared for each other. On the day of the trial, the atmosphere aboard the mothership was electric. Hundreds of Scifi filled the Hall of Echoes, their glowing forms casting soft light across the room. Human representatives, including Ambassador Clara Hayes and members of the United Earth Council, observed remotely via live transmission. The proceedings were broadcast galaxy-wide, drawing attention from countless worlds curious about the outcome. The trial began with Valen, the elder who had opposed Lyzira's bond, addressing the assembly. His voice resonated powerfully as he outlined the risks of allowing such an unconventional union. "Our survival depends on stability," he argued. "Bonding with outsiders introduces uncertainty, which we cannot afford. We must prioritize the safety of our people above all else." Next, witnesses were called to speak. Traditionalists among the Scifi testified about the dangers of deviating from established practices, citing historical examples of failed bonds that had led to chaos. Their arguments painted Thomas as an outsider unworthy of trust, emphasizing the potential consequences if his compatibility with Lyzira turned out to be flawed. When it was Thomas's turn to address the council, he stepped forward nervously, aware that the weight of the moment rested entirely on his shoulders. Taking a deep breath, he spoke with sincerity, his voice steady despite the pressure. "I didn't ask for this," he began. "When Lizera first told me I was her husband, I didn't understand what she meant. But over time, I've come to realize something important. This isn't just about me or her. It's about finding common ground between our species. Yes, we're different, but isn't that the point? If we can learn to connect despite our differences, imagine what else is possible." He paused, glancing at Lizera, whose encouraging smile gave him strength. "I won't pretend to fully understand resonance or why I resonate with Lizera. But I do know one thing. She's shown me kindness, patience, and respect. She's taught me more about your culture than I ever thought I'd learn. And in return, I've shared parts of myself, my humanity, with her. Isn't that what bonding is supposed to be about? Mutual growth and understanding." His words earned murmurs of approval from some in the audience, though others remained unconvinced. When Lizera took the podium, her presence commanded silence. She spoke eloquently, explaining the significance of resonance and why Thomas's signature aligned so perfectly with hers. "Resonance is not random," she said. "It is a reflection of harmony, of two beings complementing each other in ways neither could achieve alone. Thomas may be human, but his essence resonates with mine. To dismiss this connection would be to deny the very principles upon which our society was built." To demonstrate their bond, Kale activated a device that projected their resonance patterns into the air. The swirling designs intertwined seamlessly, pulsating with a rhythm that seemed almost alive. The sight left many in awe, including some who had previously doubted them. Finally, the council deliberated privately, leaving Thomas and Lizera waiting anxiously outside the chamber. Hours passed before they were summoned back inside. As the lead elder rose to deliver the verdict, the room fell silent. "We have reviewed the evidence and listened to testimony from both sides," he declared. "While this bond challenges tradition, it does not negate its validity. Thomas Harper and Lizera share a genuine connection, one that holds promise for our future. Therefore, we rule in favor of their union." Cheers erupted from supporters, while opponents grumbled in disappointment. For Thomas and Lizera, relief washed over them like a tidal wave. They had won, but the victory came with responsibilities. The council tasked them with serving as ambassadors, bridging the gap between humans and Scifi, and fostering cooperation. As they stood side by side, hand in hand, Thomas realized that their journey was far from over. The trial had proven their bond, but the real work lay ahead, uniting two vastly different species and proving that love, or whatever this connection truly was, could transcend even the stars themselves. With the trial behind them, Thomas Harper and Lizera faced a new chapter filled with challenges, responsibilities, and opportunities. Their bond had been officially recognized by the Scifi High Council, but that didn't mean the road ahead would be smooth. Bridging two vastly different species required more than just goodwill. It demanded patience, creativity, and an unwavering commitment to understanding each other's worlds. As ambassadors, Thomas and Lizera were tasked with fostering cooperation between humans and Scifi. The council believed their unique connection could serve as a foundation for collaboration, paving the way for shared advancements in technology, science, and culture. But while the idea sounded promising on paper, putting it into practice proved far more complex. Thomas began spending more time aboard the Scifi ship, immersing himself in their way of life. At first, adapting to their environment was overwhelming. The crystalline corridors pulsed with light, responding to emotions and intentions in ways he couldn't always predict. Meals consisted of nutrient-rich gels infused with flavors unfamiliar to human palates. Even basic communication relied heavily on nonverbal cues. Subtle shifts in posture or glowing patterns on their skin conveyed nuances that words alone couldn't capture. Despite these differences, Thomas found beauty in the Scifi's traditions. They valued harmony above all else, striving to maintain balance not only among themselves, but also with the universe around them. Rituals celebrating celestial alignments, storytelling sessions recounting their history of survival, and communal gatherings where resonance patterns were shared openly. All of it resonated deeply with him. Slowly, he began to see how interconnected their values were with humanity's own aspirations for peace and progress. For her part, Lizira embraced aspects of human culture with equal enthusiasm. She marveled at Earth's diversity, from its varied landscapes to its rich tapestry of languages, art, and customs. On visits to Earth, she accompanied Thomas to bustling cities, serene countryside villages, and scientific research facilities. Her curiosity knew no bounds, and she asked endless questions about everything she encountered. What fascinated her most, however, was humanity's resilience, the ability to adapt, innovate, and persevere despite adversity. One particularly memorable moment occurred during a trip to a small coastal town where Thomas had spent summers as a child. Sitting on the beach at sunset, they watched waves crash against the shore while seagulls cried overhead. Lizira turned to him, her eyes reflecting the golden hues of the fading sun. "Your world is chaotic," she said thoughtfully, "but there is beauty in its unpredictability. It reminds me that growth often comes from disorder." Her insight struck a chord within Thomas. For so long, he had viewed his role as a linguist as merely decoding languages. Now he realized he was doing something much greater, translating not just words but entire ways of thinking, helping two species find common ground amidst their differences. Their efforts weren't without obstacles. Skeptics on both sides continued to voice concerns about the alliance. Some humans feared losing autonomy to the technologically superior Zenari, while certain factions within the Zenari population worried that integrating too closely with humans might dilute their cultural identity. Misunderstandings arose frequently, requiring constant mediation and compromise. To address these issues, Thomas and Lizira proposed a series of joint initiatives aimed at building trust. One project involved creating a shared database combining human and Zenari knowledge. Scientists from both species worked side by side, exchanging ideas and solving problems collaboratively. Another initiative focused on environmental restoration, leveraging Zenari expertise in ecological sustainability to combat climate change on Earth. These projects not only demonstrated tangible benefits of cooperation, but also fostered personal connections between individuals from both species. Over time, public perception began to shift. Stories of successful collaborations spread, inspiring hope and curiosity rather than fear and suspicion. Social media platforms, once dominated by criticism, now featured posts highlighting moments of unity. A human child laughing as a Zenari ambassador demonstrated resonance patterns, or a scientist expressing gratitude for breakthroughs achieved through teamwork. Even skeptics couldn't deny the positive impact of Thomas and Lizira's efforts. Governments signed agreements pledging mutual support, and educational programs were launched to teach future generations about interspecies diplomacy. Artists created works inspired by the blending of human and Zenari aesthetics, resulting in breathtaking sculptures, music, and paintings that celebrated their shared journey. Through it all, Thomas and Lizira remained steadfast partners, supporting each other through every triumph and setback. Their bond deepened with each passing day, evolving from a mysterious resonance into something far more profound. Though neither fully understood what the future held, they embraced it together, confident that their combined strength could overcome any challenge. As they stood on the observation deck of the Zenari mothership one evening, gazing at Earth's blue-green glow in the distance, Thomas felt a sense of fulfillment he'd never experienced before. He had started this journey confused and uncertain, doubting whether he could ever truly connect with someone so different from himself. Now he knew better. Love, or whatever this connection truly was, wasn't bound by biology, language, or culture. It transcended those barriers, uniting hearts across galaxies. And as Lizira took his hand in hers, her touch warm and familiar, Thomas realized something else. This wasn't the end of their story. It was only the beginning. Years had passed since Thomas Harper and Lizira first stood together in the Hall of Echoes, their bond officially recognized by the Scenari High Council. What began as an unexpected and bewildering encounter had blossomed into something far greater, a legacy that would shape the future of both humanity and the Scenari. Their journey was no longer just about two individuals finding common ground. It had become a beacon of hope for unity across species, cultures, and worlds. The Harmony Accord, as it came to be known, marked a turning point in intergalactic relations. Crafted under Thomas and Lyzira's guidance, the treaty outlined principles of mutual respect, shared resources, and collaborative advancement. It wasn't perfect. Negotiations often stretched late into the night, with debates over language, priorities, and compromises. But the spirit behind it was undeniable. For the first time in recorded history, humans and Scenari committed to working side by side, not as separate entities, but as partners striving toward a brighter future. Under the Accord, countless initiatives flourished. Earth benefited immensely from Scenari technology, particularly in fields like medicine, energy production, and environmental restoration. Diseases once thought incurable were eradicated thanks to advanced biometric treatments. Renewable energy sources powered cities without harming ecosystems, while deserts bloomed anew through terraforming techniques adapted from the Scenari's expertise. In return, humanity contributed its own strengths, creativity, adaptability, and an insatiable drive to explore the unknown. Together, they achieved feats neither species could have accomplished alone. But beyond the tangible achievements lay something even more profound, a cultural exchange that enriched both societies. Art festivals celebrated the blending of human ingenuity and Scenari elegance, showcasing sculptures that shimmered like liquid starlight and symphonies that harmonized voices from both species. Schools introduced curriculums teaching children about resonance, empathy, and the importance of understanding those who are different. Even language evolved, with hybrid dialects emerging that combined the fluidity of Scenari tones with the structure of human speech. Thomas and Lyzira became symbols of this transformation, revered not just as ambassadors, but as pioneers of a new era. They traveled extensively, speaking at conferences, visiting communities, and inspiring others to embrace collaboration despite differences. Their presence reassured skeptics and encouraged dreamers, proving that even the most unlikely connections could lead to extraordinary outcomes. Yet their personal lives remained deeply intertwined. Over time, their bond grew richer, transcending the initial mystery of resonance. Thomas learned to interpret Lyzira's glowing skin patterns, recognizing when she was happy, contemplative, or troubled. Lyzira, in turn, mastered subtle human gestures, reading body language, understanding humor, and even cracking jokes that left Thomas laughing until tears streamed down his face. Their relationship became a living testament to the power of patience, trust, and open-mindedness. One evening, aboard the Scenari mothership, they gathered with close friends and colleagues to celebrate the 5th anniversary of the Harmony Accord. The observation deck sparkled with light, reflecting the stars outside. Humans and Scenari mingled freely, exchanging stories and laughter. Kale, now a leading scientist in interspecies research, raised a glass to toast the couple. To Thomas and Lyzira, he said, his melodic voice carrying warmth, "Without your courage and vision, none of this would have been possible." Applause erupted, filling the chamber with joyous energy. Thomas glanced at Lyzira, her golden skin glowing softly in the ambient light. She smiled at him, her eyes filled with pride and affection. For a moment, all the challenges, the doubts, the resistance, the sacrifices faded away, leaving only gratitude for the path they had walked together. Later that night, as they stood alone on the deck overlooking Earth, Thomas felt a familiar sense of wonder wash over him. "Do you ever think about how far we've come?" he asked, his voice quiet but steady. Lyzira nodded, her gaze fixed on the distant planet below. "Every day," she replied. "When I first chose you, I knew our bond would change us, but I never imagined it would change so many others too." Thomas chuckled softly. "Neither did I. Honestly, I wasn't sure I believed in resonance back then. Now, I can't imagine life without it. Her hand found his, their fingers intertwining naturally. Resonance is more than biology, Thomas. It's connection. It's trust. It's choosing to see the best in someone, even when everything else feels uncertain. Her words resonated deeply within him, echoing truths he had come to understand over the years. Love, or whatever this bond truly was, wasn't confined to definitions or expectations. It was a force that bridged gaps, healed wounds, and created something entirely new. As the years turned into decades, Thomas and Lizara's influence continued to ripple outward. New generations grew up learning about the harmony accord in school, inspired by tales of a human linguist and a Zinari ambassador who dared to defy convention. Couples from both species began forming bonds of their own, guided by the principles of resonance and mutual growth. Entire colonies sprang up where humans and Zinari lived side by side, building communities rooted in cooperation and shared purpose. Even after Thomas and Lizara eventually retired from public life, their legacy endured. Statues were erected in their honor, depicting them standing shoulder to shoulder, gazing toward the stars. Books chronicled their story, ensuring it would never be forgotten. And though they eventually passed on, one day fading quietly into the cosmos they loved so dearly, their impact remained indelible. Centuries later, historians would look back on this period as the dawn of a new age, an era defined not by division but by unity. Humanity and the Zinari had proven that even amidst vast differences, connection was possible. All it took was two individuals willing to take a leap of faith, to listen, to learn, and to believe in something greater than themselves. And so, as the universe expanded endlessly outward, the story of Thomas Harper and Lizara served as a reminder. No matter how far apart we may seem, there is always a way to find harmony among the stars.